Hey, Trails Collective, Ellie here. Welcome to the Trails Collective live show. Tonight we have Jim Blandford on the show. A lot of you know Jim because he runs tons of miles, is very fast, and he just loves him some 100-mile pain. We'd like to thank our Patreon supporters for supporting this show. And if you want to sponsor an episode, you should talk to Ian. Tonight's episode is going to be sponsored by the chocolate chips that I ate for breakfast. Without further ado, let's get into this interview with Jim. Hi, Jim. Welcome to the Trails Collective interview show. How are you?
Oh, wonderful. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. Where are you coming to us from?
Hamburg, Pennsylvania.
All right. How long have you been there?
My whole life, pretty much.
Oh, yep. That's great. That's great. What do you do?
I work for a direct mail company and do data processing.
Oh, all right. Nice, nice. Well, thanks for coming on. And to start the show, we have a couple hard hitters for you first. We're going to see how on your A game you are. For the first actually came from one of our viewers. His name is Ryan, and he wants to know, how much money would it take for you to run a road marathon?
Oh, wow. Probably pretty much. Someday, I always say I will. It would be a last minute thing, and I would just hop in one. I don't want to do that training.
Does the training sound harder or easier than the training that you do for your 100-milers?
It sounds painful. Too much of a schedule, I guess.
Okay, so you don't keep like a regular schedule. Is it more just like willy-nilly for you mostly?
Yeah, most of the time, yeah. Just kind of wing it and see how I feel day to day and go from there.
Well, speaking of training, second hard-hitting question. If you're running twice a day, 1 shower or 2 showers?
1 shower.
1 shower. After the first run or after the second?
After the second. Usually my first run in the morning is pretty close to my second run if I would do something like that. So yeah, after the second.
Okay. So I'm conflicted, especially in the wintertime, because usually I don't really double too much. If I do, my second is usually like a bike, but I'm conflicted because sometimes I am more sweaty after the first run, but then like in case I get sweaty after the second, I don't know. So I'm like up in the air, and then I guess I could take 2 showers, but that seems a little bit just like too high class for me. I don't know. I
guess I do more of a slower hike in the morning if I would do a 2 a day, and then I would go for a run in the afternoon. That's usually how my 2 a days would go. I usually don't ever run twice a day. I break it up with a hike and a run.
You are putting in some impressive mileage. So Ian, the owner of the Trails Collective, who is the Darth Vader to my Luke Skywalker, he has said, this isn't accurate. You have run a bajillion miles in 2020. I'd like to know what figure is a bajillion?
I think I combined my hiking, running, and all my forward movement, I guess. I probably had about 4,200 or 4,300 miles.
So what does that equate to per day?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't really even know.
Like
I'd have
per
to
week,
figure
what
that
would
one
you average? Let's go per week.
out. I hit a couple 100-mile weeks, and probably average would be 70. But I would probably say 70% of that is running and maybe 30% hiking. It's not all running.
Hmm. Well, I mean, we all run, well, not we all. Whoever runs a 100-mile race, some of it is hiking, but it's running. I mean, I think we all like jumble it together, and I think I think it's the same type of thing. I mean, steep hiking grades is like harder sometimes than running on a flat road.
Right. Yes.
So, no stranger to this sport nor to our trail community. I kind of want to start at this interview going back to 2015, which is
Okay.
the last time you ran Massanutten 100. So, I read your race report, and it reads that after 20 weeks of training, 1,300 miles, and over 200,000 feet of vertical gain, that's not a typo, 200,000 feet, you DNF'd at mile 38 due to lower leg tendon issues. So the 3 years before that, you had podiumed all 3 years. You won in 2013, I believe. And so the race report didn't really it didn't have a follow up as to what you thought happened during the race, or besides like diagnosing that that's what hurt, or what maybe led to that. So why don't we go back to that race and talk to us about the race? Like, how did you train? You had so much success, and so obviously being a veteran, you probably knew what you were doing. Like, what do you think happened?
I think it changes year to year. Now with Massanutten, I think I have 5 DNFs there, so we want to put that out there right away. So I had really good years, and I had years that I just didn't really feel like being out there after a while. It was just like I don't know. I think more I struggled mentally on some of the races, and but 2015, I think maybe I could have been maybe a little overtrained. I had a really good bull run the month before that, and yeah, I just had some pain, I guess, in my leg. I had to look back at the race report because I didn't even really remember I'm going back that far. But yeah, I knew it was time to call it that day, and I got to enjoy the rest of the day watching some other runners. It's not really what I wanted to do, and I think I run my races a little different than most people. I really try to go out on the edge, and hopefully it pays off. And sometimes it just didn't pay off for me, and that's the way I'll probably always run my races. And I don't have a lot of patience, I guess, sometimes when things go the other direction. I'm still working on that.
So when you say on the edge, I think running a 100-mile race, I guess my brain doesn't really understand like on the edge and trying to do that for could be 24 hours. But obviously, in addition to you, we have like Zach Miller, we have like Matt Lipsy, that people that just go balls out in the beginning and like hope to hold on. So what does
Right.
that mean for you? Like, you're standing on the start line in Massanutten, and what does that mean?
Well, I'm just trying to run the best I can. I don't really worry about the runners around me. I know I got to get the job done, and I just I try to probably go out sometimes faster than maybe I should. But I always say, if you don't go, you don't know, and I don't want to be 20 years from now looking back and think I should have went a little slower, because I really did have some good success trying that way. And maybe I move up in age, I'll have to rethink that. But I guess that's just the way I'm wired. I want to go out there and do the best I can. And like, I want to be on the edge, and hopefully it pays off, but sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I've heard it said that you can't start an ultra too slow. And I understand that mindset. However, I also know that after 6 hours, I know I'm going to be slowing down anyway,
Right.
like no matter how slow I went at mile 5. So
Right.
sometimes I'm like, yeah, I want to get out and try to get as far as I can before I need to slow down.
Right.
So your build to 2000 to Massanutten in 2013, which the year you won, was actually kind of, not the most ideal training. You had a surgery. Like, why don't you talk to us about the build up to that? Because honestly, your build back from surgery, I think a lot of people might want to hear about, because it seemed like you were like really had your eye on Massanutten, and like the day after you were out of surgery, you were like, I'm going to do a lap around this hospital bed, So why don't you talk to us about that?
Probably started back in October or November. I got finished with some races and things just didn't feel right. And that happens with a lot of races. You just maybe don't feel right. Something is aching and it just goes away. Well, I pushed it off and pushed it off until I could hike for 10 miles as hard as I wanted to. And when I would try to run within the first couple steps, just something wasn't right. So I pushed it off and pushed it off. When my wife finally made the appointment for me to go and get checked for a hernia, I talked to some other guys that had similar issues. And when I went to the doctor, he was like, yep, you have a hernia. So I was like, all right, well, I got these races coming up. Let's get the surgery done. And after the surgery, I just took it slow at first and just tried to keep moving. And that year, that was in February, I think I had the surgery. And in March, I ran the Hat Run 50K, and I thought, well, I'm going to go out and see if I have any pain. And I didn't have any pain. I finished the race in a PR that year, and Bull Run was in April, and I was going in it to try to do the same thing, to run it as the best I could until I had pain. And I finished that race and didn't have any pain and PR'd it. And there I am standing on the line at Massanutten and just took off, and, it was probably the race of my life.
Would you say you were probably undercooked for that one? Like, definitely maybe not as like, obviously your training wasn't ideal, but I mean,
Right.
100 miles is 100 miles. So.
Right. Looking back at it, probably the break, maybe in November and December and leading up to the surgery, maybe I wasn't overtrained. And there I probably came in more fresh, and it worked out. And yeah, it was a great race.
Do you find it's hard for you to take time off if you do have like an injury, an illness, or something else?
I'll take off from running, but I won't take off from hiking. Usually I didn't have any major injuries that I had to completely stop. So usually if I have some issues going on, I'll just start hiking. So if you see in my Strava that I'm hiking for 2 weeks, there's probably something that's not feeling right.
So we have another question from same Ryan, who wanted to know about the marathon. Have you kept track of your DNFs, and how many you have? And why don't you talk about one and why it happened, or something memorable?
Probably up to 7 DNFs, 8 DNFs. And that goes back to going out at the races fast and things falling apart and not being able to keep that pace the whole time. And sometimes it was better for me at the time, that what I was thinking was better for me to pull the plug and get back on the horse to start training for the next race. And let's see, well, Massanutten I had quite a few, so some of those races, I think, if I look back, and could have been a little bit of a bad attitude. Maybe it just wasn't my day, and I just didn't feel like going anymore those days. It's kind of hard to explain looking back sometimes.
Do you do any mental training to prevent that from happening? Because that's frustrating, when you were really fit, and it's hard when your body is like, yes, but your mind is just like, I don't think so.
Right. I don't do any mental training. I keep training, and I think pulling out of some of those races kept me healthier, and I didn't push myself over the edge. because some people can really do that too. Though you can really push, mentally too far, and then you'll wind up being injured and then out for 6 months. I was always, so if I had a DNF, the next day I was already planning to get back out there and tried not to think about the DNF and just look at it as a big training day and move on. And, I try not to think about the DNFs because it's just, that's the way I run and that's the way it's going to happen.
I think it's refreshing to hear that some runners are like death before DNF, but it's just one race. And, it's also sometimes if you're doing a workout and you need to just bag the workout, because it's like, if I keep going, I'm going to keep getting mentally demoralized. And also I could injure myself for later or send myself down this spiral. And then I'm taking a month off instead of stopping right now at interval 2. And then I just try again next week.
I DNF a lot of training runs.
Do you DNF training hikes?
What's that?
Do you DNF training hikes?
No, I usually finish those. Yeah. Today I had a good 10-mile power hike and I was happy with that.
So let's talk a little bit more about your hike training. JJ Duran asks, he'd be interested in, are there specific hiking routes you do all the time? Do you do like hill repeats? Is it all outside? Is some of it on the treadmill? And yeah, how do you balance the hiking versus the running? What do you have a strategy?
Well, living so close to the Appalachian Trail, I'm only about 2.5 miles from the Appalachian Trail. So the treadmill, that never gets used for me except to hang clothes on or something like that.
Expensive clothes hanger.
Yeah. Since I'm so close to the Appalachian Trail, I have so many options and other trails that are side trails off of the Appalachian Trail. Today I planned for a 10-mile hike. So there were some hills, 2 bigger hills in there, and I don't know if I always do the same. I have a few loops that I can mix in for the power hiking and yeah.
How long would a 10-mile hike take you?
Like today I was feeling pretty good. So I was probably around 2 hours, 25 minutes, I think. Some days that could be 3.5 hours if I'm taking a lot of pictures and just want to enjoy the views and stuff like that. I try not to, make it overcomplicated and really think about speed all the time. It's just a fun way to get away from running.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that do you enjoy hiking more than running, or is it sort of like giving your body a little bit more of an easier way to train?
Right. I think for me, they're used for recovery days after a harder workout, a running workout, and then just enjoying that hike. I can stop and look at the views and take pictures, and you're not trying to get those miles in a your PR or close to your best time or something like that. So yeah, I really mix a lot of the hiking with the running. I don't know if it's with my age, but if I run 6 days, 7 days a week, it's not fun.
Well, that does answer JJ Duran's question, because he's about your age and he's interested in how you put in all the work without it breaking down your body. So would you say it is just the combination of the hiking and the running? Do you do much strength training?
No, I don't do any strength training. I know I should as I get older, but the hiking and running seems to take up a lot of time, and I make the excuses of using that to not do the other kind of training.
Well, hill repeats, it is strength work in disguise. And I think that a lot of the work that, at least that I do in the gym, is doing things that you can get on the trail, like strengthening your ankles and strengthening the tendons and ligaments that are surrounding your muscles. That's really what we're doing in the weight room, right? So I think that you're doing that on your hiking days. So you might be doing strength training, but it's not, I'm going to the gym and lifting this weight up and down.
Right, correct.
So what do you think is so you've been running ultras since you were about 36. So that's about 14 years. And Liza Howard has a column in I Run Far called Age Old Runners, which I really, really like reading because I want to run for a very long time. And you have been running, and you've been running for a significant time, but also you're not really slowing down. You're sort of maintaining what you've got, even though I guess might be past like about middle age. So you're not really slowing down yet, but you're not exactly a young gun. So if Liza asked you to write a column about middle-aged runners in their 40s for possibly approaching like slowing down or deceleration in training, what tips and advice would you give to other people?
Just take it day by day and really listen to your body. You want to push, but then you also got to remember that you're going to break yourself down. And I can always feel myself breaking down. I don't follow a program, but it seems like I'll have a good 3 weeks and then a week that I just need to back away and really dial it back when I'm training for a race. But adding in the hiking really seems to help me. And I've done that for many years now. And it just makes running more fun when you come back a day or two later and then you want to do that push. And I would definitely recommend, I recommend hiking for everybody. I just want to have fun now all the time and not make it really stressful. It's supposed to be fun, and running is fun if you run fast, and a lot of people enjoy that, but I got to mix them both together so I can keep going.
Oh, sure. I think like during my off season of training, I do, and even into it, like when I have a day off, like I love to go hiking and walking around. It's just it's really nice and just like keeping your heart rate down. And well, at least the hiking that I do. I mean, I'm sure the hill repeats you're doing will get you up there, but it does really just, it reminds you that not every like workout or run needs to be this heart throbbing thing. And, it can be extremely just, which those are great, but it can also, your body does need just get outside in nature and just take a second to enjoy it.
Right. Yeah.
So you say you haven't really dealt with too many injuries besides that hernia. How much do you think luck plays into ultra races and longevity, or like having good biomechanics, genes, and avoiding injury, but also like not falling or things like that? Do you think that you have good biomechanics and maybe genes? Were your parents runners?
My dad did a little bit of running when I first started back in the 80s. Maybe it's genes and genetics. I'm not sure. I just I always was a runner, I guess, and I don't even really think of the biomechanics too much. I just go out and run, and yeah.
Well, I mean, the very terrain that you're on also helps, I bet, a lot.
Right. Yeah, I'm on a lot of rockier stuff all the time, and you're really focusing a lot on looking down in this area. I did go out running with a hunter at one time, and he said to me, "Now I see why you don't see any animals, because you're always looking down at the rocks." So it is a lot of focusing on the ground.
And then the hunter was like, "Go run over there." And
yeah.
So we have a couple questions about fueling, and which is pretty interesting. Elizabeth Hartman asks, what have you learned about fueling during races over time? What is it different now, approaching 50 than it was when you were 36? And what advice would you have for somebody preparing for their first ultra if they're in that age range?
I think when I first started it, I tried to make it too complicated and try to make all this weird stuff, different types of granola, and just all these energy things I was trying to make on my own, and then doing like peanut butter and jelly. Well, I realized I can't run and try to swallow a peanut butter and jelly. I can do that if I slow down and walk, but when you're in a race, you don't want to really stop and eat a peanut butter and jelly with you, because the guy behind you is not going to stop and eat one with you. So before the Massanutten race, I think it was the 2013 race, we stopped at a running store on the way to the race, and I picked up some of the Hemmer Perpetuum, and that worked for me at that race. So I stay with that pretty much every race. So you know, my plan is so simple. It's just I use the Hemmer Perpetuum, a gel, an S cap, and then later on in the race, you know, I go with some Coca-Cola and maybe an orange, but I don't do any solid food. And that just seemed to work for me, and I've been doing that for years.
That's so interesting. I've interviewed Davin Oskvig on the show, and his plan is like so dialed. His dad comes and like has like everything ready, and it's just funny because like I know some runners do have it completely dialed, and that can be like also in addition to it. I mean, you seem to have it dialed. I mean, you have like 3 things that you eat, but
Yeah.
maybe not a specific plan, but at least you know, like this will work when I need to eat.
Right. And I set a timer usually on my watch. So I try to drink a bottle of the Hemmer an hour and take a gel, like, you know, in a 100-mile, maybe every 40 minutes. And then the S cap pretty much on the hour. And that's all I would do. And that, you know, wound up being like 240 calories an hour. And it worked. And I just stayed with that. You know, there's no chewing involved and no stopping at the aid station, and just pick that up from my wife, my crew, and out I go.
So it sounds like you do it per hour, because we had a question from James asking, do 10 hill miles require more calories than 10 flat miles? And if you're out there, like you said, you're hiking for like 2.5 hours, do you take nutrition on your daily runs?
Sometimes, but like today I didn't. And on a 3-hour, you know, if I'm doing 3 hours at a fast pace, maybe I would take some kind of fuel, or, you know, like a Lara bar or something really simple. Usually I only do the Hemmer stuff in races, because it gets a little expensive if you do that on every run. But I never get too far away from my car. So yeah, I do have it a little bit dialed in for my training runs. I can usually go, you know, 2-3 hours really with not much at all, you know, just water.
Mm-hmm. And then, but if you are doing like a hillier route, it's obviously like would probably take more calories then, right?
Right, because it'll take a little longer. Maybe I'd take a honey bun with, or or a Lara bar. It's nothing fancy, just trying to get, you know, some calories in, and that time goes by so fast. And I don't really use, I would say I don't really use a lot now in training like I used to. It's more for the races.
Mm-hmm. So James has a couple other questions about training. Basically, it's sort of like taper before the race. Before your race, do you back off on like how do you dial it down so you're well rested? Do you stop doing as many hill reps? Do you keep things like, do you hike more? Like, what does your training look like before a race?
I think I would probably be hiking a little bit more and mixing that in with some lower running miles. I don't really have a plan with that, and that's usually when I get nervous the week or 2 before the race, because I don't know exactly what to do and how to taper. So I just try to see what some other people are doing. And
after 14 years, you don't have a strategy? Oh my gosh.
Well, I know I got to slow down. I know I got to slow down, and I probably wouldn't be doing hills intense right up, because that would take a lot out of you. But I don't really follow much of a plan at all. No.
It's so funny. In other ways, I think we all do the same thing. It's like if we have a niggle, or like maybe we had an upset stomach after this, it's like running Reddit, like, or Google, like, even if it's probably even professionals do that. Like, come on, let's be real. Like, we all have freak out moments, and that's just like,
Right.
well, I don't really know what I'm doing, or like, should I have ran like that today? Let's see if a runner has ever done it before in history. And if they have, maybe I was right. Like, it's ridiculous. Right. That's funny. Have you noticed any correlation between doing more hill work and more hiking with speed, or is it kind of a wash?
I would say it's a wash. I mean, I feel strong some days running the hills and other days not too strong, but overall, like I've been trying to get some flatter running in now, and I'm feeling like I'm running pretty well right now on the flatter stuff after doing a lot of elevation lately.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's probably a wash. Like it's hard to tell because if you don't time yourself on some different routes, you don't really know how you're doing. But I feel like I'm doing pretty well. Like last week, I did a hillier 3.3 mile run, and I felt really good there. And then I was sore for quite a few days because I probably pushed it too hard.
Um, Kellen Hopkins in the chat room asked, do you have any special or memorable moments when you're doing like hill repeats or workouts? Like, what do your workouts look like? I was going to ask that too.
Most of the time when we're doing hill repeats, it's a fun night. Especially the last couple of years. We have a group. I have a group that meets every Tuesday night, or Tuesday night hill repeat night, and it's usually about a mile up with maybe over 700 feet of climb. So a lot of it's hiking going up, and we'll run back down, and then just keep going for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then sometimes some of us will get there early if we can, and sometimes those nights are just all hiking too. But I don't always do like super fast hill repeats like you probably see, like 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off. I'm just going up a lot. And some days I'll mix in the faster stuff too, but it's not really, super fast.
It seems like you kind of have a laissez-faire attitude towards training now. Is that something that you've always had, even when you started back in your 30s? Or were you track more consistently? I mean, because you are on Strava, obviously, and that's I'm not on Strava because I know I compare myself to things and I need to focus on myself.
Right.
And so, but it doesn't seem like you have that issue, or is it more you consciously don't keep track of things because you know that like if this isn't as good as last week, that's gonna suck,
Yeah, that I don't even really think of. It's more probably about having fun anymore, and just I do a lot of solo, probably faster training during the week. So if I want to run really fast, maybe like a Wednesday, I'll go out for just say like an 8 mile fast run or something like that. Then I know the weekends are coming up, and a group of us usually will meet up in the mountains, and we'll go for 3-4 hours and get the time in, and that really works for me.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't think everything needs to be tracked. And if that keeps people running longer, or just I mean not longer as in distance per day, but just in the sport longer, or not as burned out and stuff, I think that's a really great attitude. So that is something that as the audience has asked, like as you age, like let things go.
Right. Yeah. And I like putting everything out on Strava. For me, that's just what I want to do. I want people to see, what I'm doing, and just hopefully they can maybe see something I'm doing that maybe they're like, he's not doing that right, I can't do that, or maybe he's doing something right that I'm going to try. So not everything I do works.
Permission, I feel like people maybe they're like, oh, should I run that? I don't know, is that too much? And they're like, oh, well, Jim did it, so that's permission, I can do it.
Now, it took me a while to build up. I wasn't always doing as much elevation, and this year was a little different, with 2020 was, with COVID and having a lot more time and no races, and really getting in a lot of elevation. So
you do. I was going to ask about time management, how you fit in all these hiking and running miles.
Yeah, right now, I still have some time off with COVID. So I'm on 1 week, off another week. So that is one of the reasons why I'm out there, at least during the day. If I would be working a normal schedule, I would have to do a lot more stuff at night. And usually those weeks I don't do as much training. So normally before all the COVID stuff hit, 70 miles was a good week for me.
Mm-hmm. Um, Eddie in the chat room asks, Jimmy, what are the most miles you can get out of your shoes, and what are your favorite shoes?
Well, I'm a big Hoka guy. um, that all depends on the Hoka shoe. Sometimes you can get 200 miles out of them and blow out the side, or I could probably get 600-700 miles. So that goes shoe by shoe, and depending on what technical terrain you're running on too, you can just rip those bottoms of your Hokas right off.
Well, I was curious because Ryan also asked another question, that is your secret the 3 H's: Hokas, Hummus, and hiking.
Yep.
So can you explain the 3 H's?
Well, I've been a Hoka guy probably since 2012, and I do try some other shoes now in the last couple of years, but my main go-to are the Hokas. They just, I don't know if it's my age, but just that cushion over rocks, and I learned how to use them on technical terrain, and not everybody likes the certain shoe that I would use the max cushion ones on technical terrain, and they just work for me. I think it really was a help in the 100-mile races that just helped me at the time and helped just my legs feel better the whole race. So that in the Hummus, we have a lot of parking lot parties, we call them, in summer and even now too. But that was a good thing to bring when we'd hang out after the runs. And so what was it? Oh, and hiking. Yeah, I'm always out hiking after my runs or before the runs. So yeah.
Are you vegetarian?
Yeah, I do eat fish. So whatever you call that, it's I eat a little bit of fish and seafood, but yeah, mostly maybe once a week I'll have some fish. But yeah.
I mean, I love hummus. Okay, controversial. Are refried beans like Mexican hummus, and aren't they delicious? Like, do you like refried beans?
I actually had a dip the other night that was like a buffalo with beans in it, and that was really good. Yeah, beans are fine.
I really just feel like I grew up eating refried beans, but I never grew up eating hummus. And now I'm like, refried beans are Mexican hummus. And I just didn't even know, because I love hummus and I love refried beans. And it just occurred to me the other day that I've been eating hummus forever. But it wasn't bougie until like last 10 years.
Yeah. But yeah, we eat a lot of hummus in our parking lot parties. It's a great food to eat after your run.
So Grace asks that you're also the master at volunteering at aid stations. Do you is hummus part of your aid station strategy, and will there be hummus aid stations in the coming year?
Well, that would be up to Stefan. He's he's the owner of the Uber Endurance Sports. So if we can get him to purchase some hummus at the aid stations, we could have that. But yeah.
Oh,
we rock our aid station.
That's where you volunteer as Uber Endurance?
Yes.
I've done the Naked Prussian Bavarian, the 50-mile one, and those trails were so pretty. Like I had
probably there.
Time.
Yeah, I was probably at that aid station. We're usually at every race. Me and my wife and Ryan, the one that's asking the questions.
Oh, that's awesome. So I was going to ask another thing about your volunteering skills. So, what makes you volunteer? Like, so you've ran all these races. What is something that you've experienced during a race from a volunteer that you try to bring to volunteering?
Just really making them feel comfortable when they come in and just trying to take care of everything. I'm part of the Pagoda Pacers, and just seeing those races from when I started volunteering at some of those races, it's just our aid stations are really good in PA, especially in Pagoda Pacers or Stefan's at the Uber Endurance. We really take care of the people when they come in there and take it serious and try to really get them in and push them out to give them some confidence and keep going. And met a lot of people that way, and it's really fun helping and giving back on that side of it. Because when I first got into it, I didn't always do that part of the race. You just go to the race and leave and not really probably think too much of what else goes on in the background. And it's really nice to be a part of that.
Yeah, now I have this mind that like hummus at the aid stations now, though, like you can't have the communal bowl of hummus anymore. Like everything's got to be single serve. So you're gonna have to get like the Sabra hummus, hand
Yeah, and just rip off the top with a chip and go.
Can't touch them.
Right.
And yeah, that's sad. Miss the communal bowl of hummus. I will not miss the communal bowl of M&Ms, but the communal bowl of hummus, that's always a good one. So Ryan asks, since you're always on the trail or a hill, what are some of the most interesting comments that you've gotten from other people or hikers when they see you always outside doing these hill repeats?
Well, usually if you're on the same hill, going up and down, if they're hiking, you usually pass them a few times, and they usually don't talk at first. And then after you see them about 5 times, then they get a little bit more interested in what you're doing. I don't know if I really had any interesting comments, just like, good job, or, better you than me, or
well, I have ever since COVID started. So we have a loop that we do for workouts, and the other day we were just doing like strides and stuff, but we kept turning back around because we were trying to like all sync up towards the end of all of our various workouts. And we must have went by this one lady like 20 times. And normally it's not a big deal, but like this is COVID. So we're trying to avoid her. And every time we got 6, like trying to get her around her. And it was just getting more and more awkward. And so, yeah, I completely understand like going by people like 10 times and they're just like, what are you doing? And after a while, like, but then after a while, like, cause I'm tired. So by the 6th one, you're like, can you just please move out of the way? Why can't, well, you know what I'm doing.
Right.
So I think a lot of us runners have had several like, what the fuck am I doing moments during our training, especially those of us competing at such a high level of you without much more than anecdotal evidence and the experiences of others like we've talked about to go on. Have you ever had one of these moments, maybe during training or a race, or like you said, during tapering, another moment where you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing. What do I do here?
Well, I guess I could lead this into being burned out in the end of 2016, I think it was. I just totally lost the drive to run. People were asking me, hey, let's go for a run. And I lost total interest. It just felt like I never even ran before. So I tried to, take it day by day. And it was a weird time because, I ran for so long, and now like it just felt like it was gone. It's like I gotta find something else to do now because I really don't even want to go out. I would still meet people out on the trail, maybe help crew them somewhere like on their training run or something like that, which was fun. But I didn't want to have anything to do with running. It was just a weird time. And then I slowly got into just a little bit of like birding, just going out in the mountain, and I still wanted to be out in the mountain. So I would, spend 3-4 hours just walking around trying to take pictures of birds and learn a little bit about the birds, which I think was really a great thing looking back at it, because now when I'm running and I hear different birds, it's nice to be able to maybe pick out 1 or 2 and then look for it. So it really added to my running. But yeah, while I was out looking, doing the bird thing, I slowly tried to mix in hiking while I was out there. Because, if I was out there for 3 or 4 hours, I would only be doing maybe 2 miles. It's a really slow thing to do. And eventually it just worked out that I was walking, hiking, and then I tried to blend more of the running back in, and it did come back. But I listened to my body that time. Over the years, you're always trying to push through. You get too many races, you just feel tired. And I talk to a lot of people about it, and I see it happening quite a bit. And, most people, if they can back off for a while, it comes back, and that's a good thing. And it came back for me. So now, that's probably why I add more hiking in now, maybe than I did before, just to keep it mentally good for me. So I can run in.
I think it's important to note that like it wasn't some aha moment that you came out of this being burnt out. It was like the daily, just like going out there, doing whatever your body could, and sometimes not going out there and just trusting, like, if it's supposed to come back, it'll come back, and just trusting
Right.
the daily in and out, just giving your mind and body some time to refresh. I think that's really important.
Right. Yeah, and that was probably an 8 month period, probably 7, 8 months. You know, I think I looked it up one time. I probably had less than 200 miles. You know, I just spent a lot of time watching YouTube, and it was just, yeah, it was a weird time. I just really had no interest in running at all. I'm glad it came back.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes it just takes time, and we've all got tons of time to run. Like, we're not like, so no point in rushing the process and getting more and more burnt out, I guess.
Right.
So Ian asked question, highlight a beautiful moment or two from the Million Feet of Vertical year repeats. And so was last year like, did you try to get 1,000,000 feet of vert?
Well, in the beginning of the year, I was just doing my normal thing. And then when COVID hit, we just had a lot of time. And Ryan, the guy who keeps asking questions, we train a lot together and we work really good together. We just like going up and down a hill, and it's fun. It's not a lot of pressure, and just go for hours going up and down. And I started to build up some momentum of hills and was feeling pretty strong. And the vertical challenge that they had out in Arizona was a virtual race, and it was a 7-day race. Just tried to get as much vertical as you could. And I decided to do that. And the first day I went out for that, I hit 15,000 feet of climb, and it felt pretty good because I was just, I would hike up and run down, hike up, run down. And I really tried to pace myself and not go super fast. And it worked that day. And the next day I came back, and it was a little harder to get up each morning, but I was hitting almost 15 each day, close to it. I think I had one lower day when I had my daughter's graduation, but I was putting about 10 hours a day. I think I had 60 some hours that week, and that was really neat for me to see that progress. I'm just seeing how I wake up and feel the next morning, and realizing that I could go again. And once I got out there, everything seemed to click, go back to normal. And yeah, that week I wound up with over 100,000 feet. That was my biggest week ever. And so after that, it was a couple weeks after that, that kind of took it out of me for a couple weeks. I was still out there, but I didn't feel like I could get as much. I had to back off a little bit. But then I was looking at the data and trying to figure this out in my head. And I was like, maybe I'd have a shot at 1,000,000 if I keep going. It takes a lot of time to do this because, I'm not running them super fast. I'm just going out there. And, the last 6 or 8 weeks of November and December, I put a lot of effort in those weeks. And I think those last 3 months, I maybe was over 100,000. But yeah, I hit that. So it really wasn't the plan in the beginning. It just, I stayed healthy the whole year and I kept going. So
were there any moments that felt overwhelming, or when you thought maybe I should quit?
Not at all. I mean, I just really enjoy going up and down hills. It's so rewarding. I don't know. It almost turned into a different sport for me now, I think, other than just running. It's sometimes, especially during our big months of training, you wound up showing up that day to do 7 or 10 hills. You never even looked at the mileage. It's just, you knew you wanted to do 7 or 8, and then you wound up seeing what the mileage was at the end of the day. So the mileage thing was totally, you weren't even thinking about, I'm going to go do 20 miles. It was like, we're going to do 10 hills today. So that was an interesting thing that I noticed, that we don't really think about mileage as much sometimes when we do our repeats. It's just like, it's either a 3-hill day, 7-hill day, a 10-hill day, or so that was neat.
It's really incredible what you can do with just slow and steady progress and not putting any limits on yourself. Because you might think, I only want to do 5 hills today, but then you end up doing 7 or 8, and you
Right.
also taken time, obviously, in 2016 when you just were like, I'm not going to do anything today.
Right.
Do you ever remember, like, in moments when maybe when it does feel really overwhelming, or you just don't want to get up, or you're maybe in the middle of a repeat and it's just not clicking, do you remember that time in 2016 when it just didn't feel that great? And does it ever change your mind, like, in the moment?
Um, I just think things started to slow down, and probably taking, some time off during the week, and then maybe doing, a 3-day week, only running 3 days that week. And then maybe that third day you were trying to run really hard, so you feel like you weren't losing any speed. And, that'll just destroy you after a while, just trying to run too fast on those days with so many days off. And I think it just probably really blew up on me, just being burned out. And it just finally hit me. And it was just like, that's it, you're done for a while. And I actually, I did listen. And, the only bad part about that is the whole time you're off, you feel like you should be back running. You can't just separate it. And it's a game, I guess, all runners play.
It's like we all want what we can't have. When you're taking time off, it's like, oh, I just wish I was running. And then in the moment when you are running, sometimes you're just like, oh, this really sucks. Like, whatever. It's like, be present and just realize what your body is doing right now. I have that conversation with myself a lot.
Right. And that's one thing I noticed too, being away from it. It was like, I would look back or think about the runs that I did. It was like, oh, wow, I ran all the way over to this mountain. It's just 10 miles away. And I came back, and now it's like, I can't even really do that. It's like, I want to get back there. So that kind of brought me back too. It was like, just thinking about it was, I guess, a good thing. But yeah, I think missing just being able to move your body in those distances, whatever it was, 10 miles, 15 miles,
It's all really worth it.
Yes.
So, thank you so much for doing this with me tonight. The last question that I have comes from Kellen in the chat room, and she wants to know, what is your bucket list race?
I've been watching a lot of the European races, so there's some really interesting looking longer races over there. I don't think I really have a bucket list, but maybe if I did have a bucket list race, it would probably be going over to Europe somewhere, one of the longer maybe races over there, and seeing the scenery and everything over there. It just looks beautiful.
Pick one.
Well, my friend Pat, he did is it Tour de
Gens?
That looks really interesting. Maybe
Interesting.
something like that.
Do you use poles? Are you into the European pole thing?
Oh yeah, that's whenever I hike, I have poles. Yeah, some days I'll use them on my hill repeats, and oh yeah, I started using them a lot in the last couple of years, and I just really like going out and cranking away with the poles. And sometimes it's just like I just want to throw them off the side of the trail, and but not with running anyhow. They're not always the best thing on rocky trails to use while you're running, but hiking, they're fun. I like them.
That's cool. Well, thanks again for coming on, Jim. It was wonderful to have you. You provided so much knowledge, and I think everybody had a really good time listening to you. Before we go, will you tell everybody where they can find you online and see your impressive mileage? Oh, you also have a YouTube channel, which I did watch, which is really cool. Everybody should check out Jim's YouTube channel. What's it called?
Trail Runner Jim, I think. I guess I could send you that info and we could put it somewhere.
Yeah. I'll put it in the link below here.
Yeah, I don't have too many videos. It's just a fun thing sometime to try to figure out. I didn't touch the camera for a while. But yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and
Strava.
And Strava. Yep, you follow me on Strava. That'd be great.
Well, thanks again. Oh, sorry.
We can share some info on Strava, and you can check what I'm doing.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. We'll put all that in it will be on the link to this on thetrailscollective.com and in the Facebook page. So
Okay, awesome. Thanks, everyone.
for
Thank you.
coming
Yep.
on, Jim. It was wonderful to have you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night and happy running.
Yep, you too.
Thanks again, everybody, for joining us tonight. Thanks for participating in the chat room. We had such a good time. Have a good evening. Stay safe, stay warm, and keep running happy.